Hello, welcome to a vlog of interesting thoughts, I hope. I have been, or I started, I should say, Gone with the Wind, and I have some interesting feelings so far, and I don't really want to keep them bottled up inside me. So this is the best way I can think to express them. This is one classic I swore I would never read, and I don't know what to do. It's very difficult, I think, for a couple reasons. One is that the characters so far are not likable, the main characters, and I'm only in chapter 2, but still, I've watched the whole very long old movie, and I remember not liking anyone. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is obviously the topic of slavery. This book, in case you have never read Gone with the Wind, it discusses specifically where I'm at right now, pre-Civil War, from the South's perspective, where they are plantation owners, slave owners, and how that works. So it's interesting. From what I understand, the book was written by Margaret Mitchell in like 1860s. I need to fact check that, to be honest. So I will be doing that tonight, I think, if I can remember. Otherwise, I'll do that this weekend. But it's interesting because of where it takes place and all that surrounds it. And of course, the relationships that are in it, between masters and slaves, and the two guys who were just visiting Scarlett O'Hara in chapter 1. I also want to say that this will be a spoiler-filled vlog, because I want to be quite authentic with my feelings, and I don't want to be vague about what I'm saying. So the two boys who were visiting her, who were kicked out of their school, first of all, really hated them. And they're dragging their brothers out with them because their brothers refuse to go to a place they're not welcome, but their brothers want to learn. Don't like them at all. But the fact that they're like being driven around by their slave, who was gifted to them when they were 10 years old, but they grew up all together. It's just a really complex relationship. And then also the fact that their mother, what did it say that? Did it say that? I think it said that she whipped only her boys, but they never whipped the slaves. I think that's what it said, but it was just like, it's very difficult in some ways to read. And of course, obviously, the N-word is being thrown out a lot, by white, by black, by all these different kinds of relationships are using different terms. On top of that, we also have the viewing of other people and how they view Black people and African descent. It's really an uncomfortable book to read, and I'm only in chapter 2. And I think it's good uncomfortable because it definitely makes you take a step back and look at your own self. But at the same time, I want to know why it stood the test of time, because it's set in a time, but I'm also like, okay, we know Scarlett O'Hara is not a good person. I'm gonna loop there. Anyways, we know Scarlett O'Hara is not a good person. It states that right from the beginning. She is unlikable, and it states that she acts like a child who's never been taught the word no. We know this. So I'm wondering how that's going to impact this book, and if she's going to gain a more insightful view of slavery from this perspective. I also don't remember what side of the war Margaret Mitchell might have been on, so I do need to look into that too. So I have a lot to look into about this book, but I do have very mixed emotions about this because of the swearing, and the use of the N-word, and because of the slavery and mixed relationships and the way Mima treated the other slaves. It's very complex, and I don't want to keep it bottled in. So I'm gonna hopefully discuss my feelings with you. Hopefully I can understand what I am feeling about this book. A book I swore I would never ever read, but now I am, and it's not uncomfortable for the reasons I swear I would never read it for. It's for different reasons. So I'm going to sit in this uncomfortableness because it's not a bad uncomfortable, but it is something where I'm just trying to figure out what the author's trying to say, because that is something I think I need to figure out before I judge the intentions of the writing too much. So I'm going to look into that all first, but I just want to start off this vlog. So welcome to Nama's Bookshelf, and we're going to, unpack Gone with the Wind. So it is Friday, April 8th. I'm driving to see my cousin Megan for the weekend, and this is a perfect opportunity for me to really sink my teeth into Gone with the Wind. I've listened for a half hour before stopping and getting gas, really to just top up my tank before driving for 3 hours and another 15 minutes. I hope maybe longer. If the roads are bad, I'll just take it slow, take it easy. And if the roads are really bad, I'll turn around. That's my plan. But I'm hoping that this trip will give me a good opportunity to really get to know Scarlett O'Hara and her family. Really just sink my teeth into the book and not just get caught up in the little details. So I have put on my audiobook, and we are going to drive for another 3 hours and hope the audiobook really keeps me interested for the whole time. I will say the writing style so far is good. Obviously, thoughts are the same, but I'm liking the writing style so far, and I am interested. I am really glad that we know that Scarlett O'Hara is a very spoiled brat, as they have already clearly stated many times. So yeah, we're off for a drive.
From the black taffeta sheath of her basque was creamy-skinned, rounded and slender, and it seemed always tilted slightly backward by the weight of her luxuriant hair in its net at the back of her head. From her French mother, whose parents had fled Hayley through the mud holes as a lady in a satin dress. Why, that mare was Nellie, Mrs. Tarleton's Nellie, Beatrice Tarleton's treasured darling. When he saw her standing in the mud, Mr. Wilkes drew rein with a smile of pleasure and, dismounting, came toward her. "I had hoped to see you, Scarlett. I was charged with so many messages from your people, but there was no time. We just got in this morning, and they are rushing us out immediately, as you see."
So I am home for my weekend. I just drove another 3.5 hours, but I have safely, I think, said, or I can safely say, I am well into Gone with the Wind. So I am on page, 342 of this edition, where I am about to start chapter 20. Literally, as I was pulling up, I had a minute left, so I finished off the last minute of that chapter, which is the chapter where Rhett Butler asks Scarlett Hamilton to be his mistress. And of course, that chapter ends with Scarlett being, first of all, not overly offended and saying, "How dare you ask me?" She says, "I would just have a lot of kids then. That's awful." Instead of actually being offended that he would ask her that. And then secondly, she wants to slam the door on him, but she's too weak. So he slams the door on himself for her. I love that ending of that chapter. So great. I really enjoyed listening to this book so far. I think this is really easy to listen to, really well written, and I really enjoy reading it. So this is something I'm definitely hooked on. This is something I needed to just sit in the car and listen to Scarlett O'Hara, essentially, or listen to the world of Scarlett O'Hara, and have no choice for at least the first 3 hours. And then I could have changed it up, but I am very happy with this. I listened to probably about 2 hours with Megan, and we drove back and forth for a little while, and I am very excited that I was able to listen to this with her, and she knows the story pretty well from the movie. So it was fun to listen to the infamous dance scene when newly widowed Scarlett O'Hara dances with Rhett Butler too. And one thing about these as well is I really like the character, actually, of Rhett Butler. even though he's like a rogue and a rake and you know he's an awful person, Scarlett O'Hara deserves everything that he ever brings her way. So I'm not feeling bad for her in any regard. So I right now it's I think the 10th of April. I'd have to check that. Let me see. Yeah, 10th of April. And I have a plan to finish this. So I have here a bookmarker for part 4. That's where part 4 starts. And I have about 200 pages, maybe just a bit under, until I hit that part 4 chapter. Now, because this weekend is Easter, I really would like to plan for the family coming over and all that. And I know I won't have a lot of time, but I do have a stat on Easter Monday and Good Friday, which I tend not to do a lot of things other than family time, but I will be planning on trying to finish off this first section. So these first 200 pages before the weekend. I'm going to be like making myself have homework essentially. So by Saturday, I'm going to have this done kind of like a buddy read situation. Then the next section, which is from page, like all of part 4, which is 350 pages, I think. It was over 300 pages. Let me check that. So it's about 330 pages. I plan on having that finished next week. So by the end of next weekend or next Saturday. So I plan on listening to all of that. And then the last part, which is about 200 pages, I will finish off in the following week after that. So hopefully that means in like almost 3 weeks, but 2.5-ish, I can be finished Gone with the Wind. And since I am eventually, like not eventually, but I'm now really hooked into this, really enjoying the world and actually really learning a lot about the Civil War from the South's perspective, I think this is good. I do think there are problematic themes in this book, especially when it comes to putting rose-colored glasses on slavery and a lot of racial connotations in this, obviously. However, I do really enjoy the learning experience I'm getting from the Civil War perspective. So how the Civil War was formed from the South and how they fought in the war, like the Confederates, because often we hear about war from the winners. So the Union and how they overtook the Confederates. So this way it's interesting to hear about how they didn't have boots and like how they were running out of food and different things like that, which are very interesting to me. So I finished off that section. And now, like I said, she just was asked to be his mistress. This is also where Melanie is about to have her baby. And Scarlett's younger sister has typhoid. And she's not allowed to go back to Tara because her sister has typhoid. And they're also not able to because of the trains and everything. So lots of things are going on right now. So it's very interesting. Like I said, I'm really actually enjoying this. And I didn't think I would. But I really like where it's like what I'm learning from it. And I like that I'm learning the culture of, you know, pre-Civil War and Civil War. And I'm also learning a lot about what it was like to be a woman back then. Lots of things. And I do understand like this is historical fiction, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. But I also, surprisingly, am really enjoying this. And I also really enjoy the fact that you're told from the get-go that both of these maybe not heroes, but both these main characters are awful people. So you shouldn't expect too many good things from their characters. So I like that part. So yes, just wanted to update that. My reading weekend with this was very good. I have 19 hours and 25 minutes left of my audiobook. So that's definitely gone down from the 28 hours that I originally had from like with my 1.7 speed. Cause I think it's like, what is it, 50 hours, like 49 hours, not like down at all. It's like 49 hours straight. So yeah, it's a lot, but I'm really excited to continue listening now for the week. And if not, I have my ebook to read from. I do plan on finishing part 3 as I'm in the middle or just started that this week, like I said, and hopefully it'll continue to be a good reading experience. I am wondering how far it's going to go because I don't remember. And we just are about to, like, we're just in that section where Atlanta's like under attack. So I don't know how far it's going to go past the Civil War movement or like how far into this point because the Yankees almost got them. So I don't know, but yeah, it's been good. So I have just finished part 3 of Gone with the Wind, and I am a little, yeah. So to kind of recap where I'm at, this is right where Ashley's come home. Literally, he and Melanie just hugged, and Scarlett just saw him walking up the path. So I have a lot of thoughts. First of all, one thought I have is there's been several specific comments that I have really found distasteful for obvious reasons. I'll put screenshots of them here. I don't feel comfortable saying them out loud. I felt really uncomfortable reading them, and for good reason. They are very racist, and this is something where I'm drawing my assumptions from what the text is saying and how it is treating people of color, and saying not just people who are of African descent, but also people who are Indigenous. There is also one of the slaves is part African American and part First Nations, Indigenous, and it is not a great treatment of that slave. So not enjoying this for that reason. I do enjoy the writing style, and I enjoy the way it's being told, but it's definitely not something that I'm really appreciating for a lot of things. It's a really weird feeling, I'll say. Yeah, I like Scarlett O'Hara's tenacity and the way she's just like trying her hardest, but I don't like so much about her. And I know we're not supposed to, but there's just so much else that I am finding so wrong. And then also, I had never read the back of my book cover, and my cousin saw it, Megan, and she's like, have you read this? So on the back of the book cover, it says that Margaret Mitchell had no idea that the South had lost the war until she was 10 years old. She had been raised on war hero stories from the Civil War, and she never knew that they had lost until she was 10. So that clearly explains a lot. I am not having a great time with this in those regards. I do think it's a really well told story, really interesting, but from a person's perspective who really needs to be re-educated, be told some things, and be taught that, you know, we are all people together, and that's clearly not the case. So yeah, I don't know. I do think that Scarlett's a very interesting person, and I like a lot of what's going on personally with the characters, but I find I like a lot more of what's happening in the book when people of color aren't on screen. The only reason I say that is because then other people or the author does not make as many racist comments, which is very sad to say, and I hate that. But when it is only white people on the page, it's a lot easier to handle in terms of racism and racist interactions. Even though they are all still racists, it's a little easier. But yes, I will be continuing on. I'm at 50% exactly, and it is good. It's just, like I said, hard things going on, but I'm at 50% now, and I'm going to do my best to finish this out over the next few days. I would like my best, I want to finish this in like maybe 3 or 4 days, because I am kind of tired of having it like hang around on my needing to read list. I think I can do it if I'm like giving it a good amount of work. It's about 500 pages in my physical book and 650 pages in my ebook, so that's manageable if I actually dedicate time to it. So that's gonna be my project for tonight, tomorrow, and hopefully I'll be finished it before Friday night, and that'll be a really nice goal that I can achieve. So yeah, then I would hopefully not have to read this again. We'll see. But anyways, that's my thoughts. So just a quick check-in. It is about the 20th now. It is the 20th now, and I have been trying to steadily chew my way through this book, and I honestly am not enjoying it much anymore. it's just the blatant racism, and I am this far in now. I have 350 pages left. It is just so bad. I don't know. There is a really interesting storyline, and I really do enjoy the characters in a certain way, but then it's just so, I don't know, so much in the background and so much on right in front. I'm really struggling. It's so hard. This book is definitely difficult, but I have just gotten to the point where Gerald, it just said at the end of the chapter that Gerald died. So we're going to enter into that next section where she goes back home to Tara for that. But I have to say that where Scarlett seduces her sister's fiance made me think that Scarlett is actually one of the most horrible people I've ever read about. And that's genuinely, like, I don't know. She doesn't top the top villains I've ever read, but she's pretty close up there. She's pretty bad. She's just not a good person in any standard. But yeah, I mean, we all know that, I think, but that's just like takes the cake. So it's just so awful. And to be married to Frank Kennedy, and he's just like, I can't imagine the realization when he's like, my wife doesn't like me at all, and she only married me for my money. I do like that she's able to have street smarts, and she's able to have this ability to really earn money, but she's also cheating and like lying through her teeth when it comes to the quality of her work or quality of her mill. So yeah, it's interesting, but I'm definitely struggling with all of the comments and the racism. This is definitely happening right now. I'm in the like Reconstruction area as well, where they're talking about how, having a Black person and a white person marry would be the most horrific thing ever, but also having potentially a Black man sleep with a white woman and not have the consequences is just way out of proportion for them. Things like that. And it's just like, yeah, not great. So that is that. And also, I've realized today that Tome Topple's happening right now, and I'm technically taking part. Well, technically, I didn't realize until today I'm taking part. But I realized that Gone with the Wind takes many of the boxes for the prompt. So it's like an adaptation. It was published before the 2018, long time before. It also is not published. It was written by a woman, and it is, there's so many. My favorite color is the color brown, and I'll grab the cover. So here it is, the cover that's there, and it has brown on the cover, and also has green on the cover. So I'm gonna go see, there's a lot of green on the cover. So this has a green cover. There's so many other ones. It just features a romance, like that's kind of the point of it. I would strongly say it also surrounds a historic event, being the Civil War. There's just, like I said, so many prompts it hits. It hits 13 out of the 20 prompts for Tome Topple this year, or Tome Topple this time. So I'm officially doing Go with the Wind for Tome Topple, since I have read about, I would say, 500 pages during this Tome Topple time. So I'm going to count that. But yeah, I'm planning on finishing this by Friday, which would put me by the 22nd finishing this book. And then hopefully I can maybe pick up another Tome Topple book if I'm feeling in the mood. But I also have an arc I'd like to get to, and also an arc that's coming out like as an audiobook. And I'd also like to just get to my author jar books and a few other things before the end of the month. So I have a few other priorities that I need to get to, but I am surprised to find that I am taking part in Tome Topple with a mammoth of a book, which is over 1,000 pages. But I'm happy that it at least counts for something in my life, because that makes it at least somewhat worth it. So it is like 10:30 now at night. I have managed to read another 80 pages in here. It doesn't look like I've read anything, but it's been 80 pages. Well, I read an e-copy, and I took a screenshot of a paragraph where every single word in that paragraph felt wrong. Here's the picture, and it's just so bad in so many ways. So, yeah, a lot of uncomfortable things. But now I am at page 700 and let me just check that, 762. And so I have just under 350 pages left. No, that's where I was at before. I have under 300 pages left now. So maybe 280 pages, which is really good. I am very thankful to be finishing this book really soon. And I have just finished the point now where Scarlett has hired the convicts, or hired the convict police, which Archie was an interesting character. Yeah, very interesting. And also another screenshot here, I had to take a screenshot of how the slaves were way better off than the convicts because they were never mistreated and they were never unhappy or whatever that was. But yeah. So I'm having an interesting time with this for sure. But I am now 80 more pages in and I am going to head to bed now. But my hope is definitely maybe to finish this tomorrow on Thursday. That'd be nice. Because I only have 280 pages left. And then I will be done. That'd be a nice accomplishment. But if not, Friday is definitely my goal. Either way, I'm going to bed tonight. Bye.
So it is Friday the 22nd and I have finished Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. I liked the ending a lot. I think the ending was really wonderful. Melanie's death was really hard to read. I think Melanie being the only glimmer of light throughout this book is really hard in a couple ways. Part one of this being a really hard way to read it is, first off, that she is very clearly racist and very clearly not someone who, if you really look at her like fact-wise, you wouldn't necessarily think of as a wonderful person, but because she's made to be the basically hero of this book, it's really hard to view her in a negative light. But she is really the only person who views Scarlett in a kind way. And so that's why her death is really hard, as we see this book mostly through Scarlett's eyes. The next thing about this ending, with Ashley and Scarlett being thrown into that scandalous moment, I think it was really interesting how that showed itself and how Rhett really was done with Scarlett at that point. And I also think that at that point, I really appreciated Rhett and how he was done with Scarlett and how he was done with her potential behavior and how she was treating him and the others around him. And then I really liked that end paragraph when he talked about the fact that he had loved her and he would have devoted everything to her, but she used the love of other people like a whip over them. I think that was such a great analogy he used, as like a whip, because she used that, not that phrase, but she used that idea so many times. Like previously she would be saying, like, if only I can get Rhett to love me, I can use it against him. Or if only I can get this person to love me, I can do this with them. It's like she purposely used love as a weapon against the people who loved her. And Rhett called her out on it at the very last section, the very last chapter, essentially. And I loved that he said, I don't love you anymore. And she could not go back on that. So I really loved that part of this. And I loved that she didn't get what she wanted. I also really loved the fact that this whole book, the whole 1,000 pages, she is in love with this idea of Ashley. And we can kind of see that throughout the whole book. But she's in love with this idea where she's often saying, oh, what a stupid man Ashley is to not take that deal. What a stupid man Ashley is to not do this. And you can clearly see that Ashley and Scarlett are not meant to be together. But she does not see that. She only sees the dream of Ashley. And in the very last moments, basically, of this book, she gets that. She sees that she's been in love with the idea and not actually the person. So I think that that's a really good thing about this. But I cannot give this book anything more than a 3-star because Of the experience of reading this, I think it was just so hard for me to read such troubling ideas about racism. And I do think this book is important because I do think it talks about a time period in history which is really important to not forget, but also I think it's difficult to read this because it's from such a difficult perspective to see that. I myself have no African heritage, and I am not that person or that owned voices. So I would like to, I've read a few articles about that, and I would highly recommend checking out some own voices reviews of this as well. But I definitely have checked some out myself, and several of those said we should continue to read Gone with the Wind because it's important. I also used my find words little tracky thing on my ebook, and it said that the N word is used 185 times in this book, which is quite a lot for only 1,000 pages. And a lot of it was not okay. It's not ever okay, the slurs, but then also the white trash that was mentioned in here, which was also a slur. No matter how you slice it, it is a slur in this book. So that also was quite prevalent in here. There were so many comments. There was also racist comments about Jewism or being a Jew. So many awful things being just kind of side-handed in here. And I just was horrified, to be honest, about this awfully round-out reading experience. So I can't give this anything more than a 3 because of just how uncomfortable it made me. And to be honest, I'm really glad I do love vlogs, or love vlogging these experiences, I should say, because if I didn't, I would probably forget how many times I was horrified by what I was reading. And if I hadn't been vlogging, I probably wouldn't have picked up the camera and stopped and thought about what I was reading instead of just plowing through my book. And if I had just stopped or if I just kept reading, I should say, I would have maybe glossed over these really awful things and just been like, I'm uncomfortable and I don't want to keep reading this scene so well. So I'm just going to speed read it and not take as much notice. And this forced me to take notice. So yeah, this is a 3-star. I do value what it talks about in terms of that time period and how it is important for that regard. I also value the fact that it talks about an area in history, in an area in that part of the Civil War after the Reformation, and how it talks about the rebuilding of society. But I also want to acknowledge that this is from a racist point of view, and it glorifies slavery, and it puts rose-colored glasses on slavery, and it values the Ku Klux Klan. This also values the killing of people of color just because they have looked at a woman the wrong way. This is very difficult to think about and not say that is inherently propping that up. And to think that this book, the second it was published, became like a massive widespread phenomenon in the American South, I believe it was, or maybe all over the North America, maybe not North America, but the States. And then they made it into a movie right away because of how popular it was. It makes me very sad to think that this was infiltrating the minds of people and made them think and, I don't know, desensitize them to the racism that was going on currently and around. And this also doesn't just talk about racism from the people of the South, racism from the Yankees and from the women of the North. And it's just very interesting and depressing in some ways, but also enlightening, I kind of want to say. I will still stand by the fact that Scarlett is my worst person I've ever read in my life, aside from a few select villains, and she's not a villain. But yeah, I am glad to say I have finished this book, and I might reread it one day, but not for a very long time. And I am thankfully done this one now. I will probably do a timeless tome, specifically sitting down thinking about all of the themes, but that will be after I have actually decompressed with all my thoughts. So this has been the end of my reading vlog of Gone with the Wind. So please let me know down below if you have read Gone with the Wind and what you like about it or dislike about it, or another big classic you recommend I try out. I love to have your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, if you would like to like this video and subscribe if you are new here, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.